All right, this is an awkward pre-class tutorial on making a character controller a bit more responsive to external forces. A lot of our character controllers, we tend to use, simple velocity manipulation of the rigid body to get the player to move in the direction we want it to and comply with all the physics and stuff. But if you're not careful and you're just manipulating the velocity, it will overcome forces and things like obviously it's overcoming gravity potentially, or it might not respond to um, certain types of effectors, surface effectors, and that sort of thing. So the question is how to make your character controller a bit more force based as opposed to velocity based. And I'll do this really. This is really kind of a simple thing here. So I'm using once again the Buy It platformer kind of game that I have here, and you'll see my little character. Hopefully if I drop into the game, we'll see him somewhere. There he is, and he's moving around. And you'll see at this point, he kind of hits this, and he has a bit of difficulty going up this hill, for example. And that's because now, instead of just applying a velocity, I'm applying a force. Okay, so let's look at the code for that. So the code here, you'll see the hero movement. We get the axis for that. Oh, this is something I should be changing. I should do that. Um, this is the desired force I want to add. And when I was setting the velocity here, yeah, I just noticed a bug. So let's see, let's make this 0 because the hero movement now is force-based, so we don't want to change the velocity. So, okay, let's let me think that through. I did not realize I had sort of potentially added that bug. Um, so what the hero does now is we grab the desired direction that we want to move the hero in. And instead of saying that we want to just set the velocity, which is what we're doing here, we would just change the velocity. Instead, we're going to grab the current velocity. Now, there's a couple of reasons. So I want to add a force, but I don't want to continuously add a force just in case there's sort of a. It's nice to have sort of a maximum speed for the character, because otherwise, if you continuously add force, it's going to continuously get faster and faster and faster. It's going to be an acceleration. Right, so we don't want that to happen. So we want to limit the amount of force that we add to the character. So the first thing we'll do is we'll grab the current velocity, and we're only going to add force under some certain conditions. Okay, one of those conditions is that the overall magnitude of the hero's velocity is less than 5. So there's a certain speed. Once the hero's going in that speed, we shouldn't continuously add force. Now, the tricky part there is, well, we do know that generally, unless the character is moving at a constant velocity, right, physics is going to generally slow the character down. So in a lot of cases, as long as there's a little bit of physics going on, that would be enough. However, you could get into situations where if you were traveling in a certain direction and you wanted to then move in the opposite direction, so obviously you'd want to let the force interact. If the force was opposing the current velocity, but not add the force if the force was in the same direction as the current velocity, you would want to make him continuously accelerate in some direction. However, you do want to make sure that the character has the ability to decelerate in the opposite direction. So I added this bit here, which basically says, okay, if we're using our old friend, the dot product, to say, all right, if we either have it's not moving at the current speed, or the velocity and the movement and the desired movement aren't directly in line with one another, right? If they're not directly in line with one another, I'm going to go ahead and let that force come through. Okay, that's what I'm doing here. So if the force that you're trying to exert, if the direction that you're trying to get the character to go in here, the force you're trying to exert, is not directly in line, because if it was 1, that would mean the dot product of 1 would mean, yes, they're exactly in the same direction. So if they're not in the same direction, we're going to go ahead and allow the force to be added. Now, we're using this add force mode 2D force, which is going to apply the force, or basically, scale the force as if it were being applied over 1 second. So it's going to automatically scale that down according to the frame rate of our game here. So it accounts for time dot delta time in there. So that's why I'm using the force mode 2D here. So this is my adding a force to move the direction, move the hero in the desired direction. Right? So if there's a surface effector, that force will be opposing that, and if this is enough to overcome it, great. If it's not, well, it'll try to balance it out. And if they're going in the same direction, the cool thing is, like, so you can use like this to do like conveyor belts and speed ups and things like that. So let me save this and see what the effect of fixing this is, because I don't really want to be applying this force. I don't want to take into account gravity in terms of my control here. So I just eliminated gravity as a factor, which should be interesting. Let's see if that changes much of anything. All right, so here comes the character. We'll drop him down, and we'll see. It does walk nice in that direction, and it does. We do run into this problem that unless we have a certain amount of force here, it's going to have a hard time coming up this slope. Why is that? Because now the force that I'm applying is potentially, what's happening is it's being split then as it hits this incline to be a certain amount of that force is going to be overcoming gravity as opposed to just moving in that direction. So unless I get that balance just right, I'm going to wind up with just enough force to stick it to the side here, but not move necessarily up or down, right? The moment I let the force off, I stop applying that force, our hero will then kind of slide down, right? We'll try to, he might have a lot of force on him to begin with. Let's see. We'll try to stick it to the side here. Okay, you see, let's stick to the side, but then the moment I let go, he has a hard time holding on there. And to get around that, basically, you're going to need to do some tuning. Okay, so the hero here, if we look at the hero's speed, potential speed is 7. And now if we look in this code here, I had it set that it was more or less adequate here with that, multiplying that speed. Maybe we need to kind of tune that up a bit here, because I think that extra force in that direction. Let's see if I can tune that up again. Let's go ahead. I'm going to try to set that speed to 10 and see if that's adequate. Hopefully that is. There we go. So 10 is enough to overcome gravity, right? Because gravity is basically negative 9.8 downward, right? So as long as I'm applying a force here, right, and it's a slippery surface, meaning, we have no force really being redirected there. There's a little bit of gravity, but it's not factoring in quite as much. But here, we're really running into this issue where it's being split now because we're trying to move across there, our velocity. I think that's what's happening. I think that through a little bit. But yeah, this is a matter of kind of tuning that. Now, just as a demonstration, I've set up a little bit, and it's not the greatest. I have this little surface effector zone here. So let me go ahead and I'll click on that, and I'll say, okay, here's the collider. And if you look carefully, I don't know how well this will show up on the stream, you'll see that right below this cloud here, or nearly below the cloud, maybe I should stretch the cloud. We'll scale the cloud to, and maybe kind of move the cloud over a little bit. So right beneath this cloud, there is a collider, and there's also a surface effector 2D on that collider. So with that active, if a character hits that, you can see like all of a sudden, and the character gets right there, you'll see that it gets pushed back or pushed across really quickly. And it's got a little bit of a, it's got a little bit. This is a non-ideal scenario because it does have a little bit of a lip because I have these sort of two colliders kind of conflicting with one another. The tile map collider that's here and the surface collider itself, or the surface effector. So ideally this would be on a different, you would have a different, let's see. Oh, I'll do it this way. Ready? Okay. Here's our world, and I'm going to go to my grid, and I'm going to create a new tile map. Where are we here? 2D object tile map, and let's put that tile map also on that same grid just because. And we're going to call this tile map speed up. Okay, I'm doing this on the fly, so let's see if this works. We can get rid of this grid now. Delete. And we're going to go and focus on the tile map here, platforms. You see I have this platform right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this section from this tile map and go to speed up. And let's see, I have to figure out where, let's see, platform. Okay, well, let's see it right there. And I'm going to paint this in. Is it slightly different? Who knows? Maybe it's not slightly different. On this other tile map here called speed up. Okay, now let's say focus on none. We're back to that. All right, let's now say this speed up also is going to have a surface effector 2D. Notice it's not all that happy there. And we're also going to add a component that is, of course, our tile map collider 2D. And we'll go ahead, set that to ground, and so on. So it looks invisible, looks exactly the same, but it has this surface effector on it. Let's make sure that we tell the surface collider that it is used by the effector. And we'll give it a speed of 5. And we'll see if this works. All right. So yeah, there it is. So it's trying to push it in that direction. It's not awfully speedy, and it's not affecting the force that much. So let's tweak it a little bit here. And so that tile map with surface effector, we'll give it a force scale of 0.5 and a speed of 10. Okay. And now, I think now we'll get a lot more of a speed up there. You see, you can't get over it. You can try. And I'm going to try to hop over it. Got tricky now. I can't see it. Whoa! I hit just right there. All right, I got past it, and we get some speed, and it gave me a little boost there. All right. So it's always cool to kind of make that slightly different graphic or something like that, so that the player can kind of see what's going on. But you get the idea. So we're using now, we have a speed up tile map here. We'll focus on that tile map. So there's our speed up, and we could put it anywhere. We could say, okay, all right, why did I do that? I'll say that over here, we'll put a little speed up. Where else do we want speed ups? We'll put a speed up. Let's see, down here. I don't know what's going to happen there. It's going to be weird. Maybe it should be like here. Maybe we'll shoot it across here and get into that corner. So we'll grab the eraser, get that out of there, and let's play the game, see what happens. So now if I ran over here, can see there's a bounce there. There's a bounce. Get across here. Whoops. Nothing for me to land on there. Speed up. I'm going to do a little jumping. And okay, there's that speed up here. So I hit that. Not quite enough to shoot me across there. All right. So yeah, let's try this. I'm going to drop down, and so I need to drop down there with enough velocity to give myself a little extra oomph, hopefully. And maybe jump. No. All right. So need some tuning, but you get the idea, hopefully. All right. Take care and enjoy. Finish out the semester strong. It's been a pleasure and a privilege, and I look forward to working with you all in the future.